My name is Emily, and I'm 34. 3 days ago, my world shattered when my husband Nathan died in a car accident. Sitting on my couch in Portland, Oregon, with my daughter Lily asleep upstairs, I called my parents, desperate for their comfort. My voice broke as I told them Nathan was gone, but my mom cut me off saying they were busy at my sister's birthday party. My dad promised to call later. They never did. Have you ever felt your family turn away when you needed them most? I'm sharing my story from the heart. Where are you watching from? Like and subscribe to join me through this journey. 2 days after that call, I sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by Nathan's things. His flannel shirts, still smelling of cedar and coffee, were folded in stacks. Lily scribbled in her sketchbook nearby, humming softly, her little world untouched by my storm. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text from my parents, something to soften the sting of their silence. Nothing. I opened my messages and typed to Sadie, my fingers hesitating. "Hey, heard you had a big party. Can we talk?" I hit send, my stomach twisting. Minutes ticked by. No reply. I scrolled through social media to distract myself, but there she was. Sadie, all smiles, in a sparkly dress, cutting a cake with Mom and Dad beaming behind her. The caption read, "Best birthday yet." My chest tightened. They were celebrating while I was drowning. I swiped through more photos, each one a punch. Dad raising a glass. Mom laughing, her arm around Sadie. Not one mention of Nathan or me or Lily. I set the phone down, my hands shaking. Lily looked up, her brown eyes wide. "Mommy, why are you sad?" I forced a smile, tucking a curl behind her ear. "Just missing Daddy, sweetheart." She nodded and went back to her drawing, but her question lingered heavy. I picked up Nathan's old leather journal from the pile, its edges worn from years of his thoughts. I hadn't opened it since he was alive. My fingers traced the cover, then flipped to a random page. His handwriting stared back, sharp and familiar. May 2017, Emily's parents canceled dinner again. Said Sadie needed them for some crisis. I hate how they make her feel small. My breath caught. Even Nathan saw it years ago. The way they always chose Sadie. I shut the journal, my mind racing. Was I crazy to expect more from them? Now? I grabbed my phone again and dialed Harper, my best friend since college. She picked up on the second ring. You okay?" Her voice was warm, grounding. I told her about the call, about Sadie's party, about the photos. "They haven't even checked on Lily?" I said, my voice cracking. Harper sighed. "Maybe they're just caught up in the moment. You know how they are with Sadie." I shook my head, though she couldn't see. "No, it's more than that. It's always been like this. Remember when Mom gave Sadie my spot in that art camp? Because she cried about it, I was 12. Harper was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, I remember. But you're grieving. Don't let this eat you up." Her words made sense, but they didn't ease the ache. I hung up and stared at Sadie's post again, the glow of her party mocking me. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I called Mom's number, my heart pounding. It went to voicemail. "Hi, Mom. It's me. I told you Nathan died, and you haven't called back. Lily's asking about you. I need to know why." I hung up, my throat tight. 10 minutes later, a text buzzed through. It was Mom. "We're dealing with a lot right now. Be patient." I read it twice, then let the phone slip from my hand. Patient. My husband was gone. My daughter was confused, and they were too busy to care. I looked at Lily, her crayons scattered like tiny bursts of color in the dim room. I wouldn't let her feel this hurt, not if I could help it. I stood up from the floor, Nathan's journal still clutched in one hand, and paced the living room. Lily's humming had stopped, and she was now stacking her crayons, oblivious to the storm in my chest. Mom's text burned in my mind. Dealing with a lot. What could possibly outweigh my loss? I opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and took a long sip, hoping it would cool the heat rising in me. It didn't. I needed answers, not vague excuses. I scrolled through my contacts and hesitated over Sadie's name again. My thumb hovered. Then I tapped out another message. I know you're busy, but Nathan's gone. Lily's asking for you. Can you call? I stared at the screen, willing those 3 dots to appear. They didn't. I tossed the phone onto the couch and ran my hands through my hair, feeling the weight of their silence press harder. To distract myself, I started sorting Nathan's books, his collection of history biographies and worn paperbacks. One fell open, a photo slipping out. It was us at our engagement party. Nathan's arm around me, both of us laughing. Behind us, Mom and Dad stood with tight smiles, Sadie pouting in the corner. I remembered that night. Sadie had thrown a fit because Dad spent 10 minutes talking to Nathan about baseball. Even then, she demanded their attention. I tucked the photo back, my jaw tight. The doorbell rang, startling me. Lily jumped up, hopeful. Is it Grandma? I shook my head, forcing a calm I didn't feel. Probably just Harper, sweetie. I opened the door, and there she was, holding a bag of takeout, her eyes soft with concern. I brought pad thai, she said, stepping inside. Figured you haven't eaten. I managed a weak smile, grateful for her presence. We sat at the kitchen table, Lily munching on noodles while I picked at my food. Harper leaned forward. So, any word from your parents? I showed her Mom's text, and her brow furrowed. That's cold, Em. Even for them. I nodded, then told her about Sadie's silence, the party photos, Nathan's journal. She listened, then hesitated. Look, I didn't want to pile on, but I heard something yesterday. Sadie borrowed a chunk of cash from your parents last month, like thousands. My fork froze midair. For what? Harper shrugged. Some business idea she's chasing. Point is, they're wrapped up in her world. Always have been. I leaned back, the pieces clicking. So that's why they're dodging me? Because Sadie's got them on a leash. Harper didn't answer, but her look said enough. Lily yawned, and I took her upstairs to bed, tucking her in with her stuffed bunny. Sleep tight, my love, I whispered, kissing her forehead. Back downstairs, I sank onto the couch, Harper beside me. I can't keep chasing them, I said, my voice low. But Lily deserves better. Harper squeezed my hand. You both do. I opened my phone again, this time to Sadie's social media. A new post, her with a cocktail, captioned, "Living my best life." My blood boiled. I typed a comment, fingers trembling. Nice to see you're thriving while I'm burying my husband. I deleted it before posting, but the urge to scream lingered. Harper watched me worried. What are you gonna do? I didn't know yet. But as I stared at Sadie's perfect smile, something shifted. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Angry enough to demand answers, no matter what it cost. I grabbed Nathan's journal again, flipping to another page, needing his strength. His words stared back steady and clear. Emily deserves more than their scraps. Don't let them dim her light. I closed the journal, my resolve hardening. Tomorrow, I'd call Dad. I'd make him explain why they were shutting me out. And if Sadie was pulling strings, I'd find out. For Lily, for Nathan, for me. The morning of Nathan's memorial, I woke with a knot in my stomach, the kind that wouldn't loosen no matter how many deep breaths I took. Lily was already up, coloring at the kitchen table, her small hands gripping a blue crayon. I smoothed her hair and kissed her forehead, trying to hide the ache behind my smile. Today was about honoring Nathan, but all I could think about was my parents' absence. They hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't even asked about the service. I dressed Lily in her favorite purple dress, the one Nathan always said made her look like a princess. "You ready to say goodbye to Daddy?" I asked, my voice soft. She nodded, clutching her bunny. "Will Grandma and Grandpa be there?" Her question hit like a slap. I knelt beside her, choosing my words carefully. "They're busy, sweetheart, but we'll have Harper and Uncle Marcus." She looked down and I cursed my parents for putting that doubt in her eyes. The memorial was at a small community center, the room filled with flowers and photos of Nathan. His smile beamed from every frame, his love for history, and bad puns captured in every story friends shared. Harper stood by me, squeezing my hand as people spoke. Marcus, Nathan's coworker, gave a speech about Nathan's loyalty, his voice breaking. I scanned the room, hoping stupidly to see Mom or Dad walk in. The chairs stayed empty. After the service, I lingered by Nathan's photo, tracing his face with my finger. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Can we go home now?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Harper drove us back, the car quiet, except for Lily's soft humming. At home, I tucked her in for a nap, then collapsed onto the couch, my anger simmering. They didn't even show up. Not for Nathan, not for Lily, not for me. I grabbed my phone and called Dad, my hands trembling. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice clipped. "Emily, what's wrong?" I laughed bitter. "What's wrong?" "You and Mom didn't come to Nathan's memorial. My husband's dead, and you're nowhere." He sighed, like I was the inconvenience. "We couldn't get away. Sadie's birthday trip got extended. She needed us." I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles white. "Needed you? For what, another party? I'm your daughter, too." "Dad, Lily's your granddaughter. Doesn't that matter?" He paused, then said, "You're being dramatic. We'll come by soon." I hung up before I could scream. Dramatic. My world was in pieces, and they were sipping wine with Sadie. I paced the living room, my anger boiling over. Harper had stayed sitting quietly on the couch. She looked up, her eyes careful. "What did he say?" I told her, my voice shaking. She shook her head. "That's low even for them." "But Em, I heard something else." "Sadie's been telling people you're blowing this out of proportion. Said you're making Nathan's death about you." My jaw dropped. "What?" "She's talking behind my back now." Harper nodded, reluctant. "I heard it from a mutual friend at the coffee shop." I sank onto the couch, my head spinning. Sadie wasn't just ignoring me. She was painting me as the villain. I thought of her smug social media posts, her carefree smile. How could she twist my grief like that? I opened my laptop, my fingers itching to confront her. I typed out a text. "Sadie heard you're telling people I'm overreacting about Nathan. Call me. Now." I hit send, my heart pounding. Minutes passed and a reply buzzed through. "You're making this about you like always." I stared at the words, my vision blurring. She didn't even deny it. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. I stood, needing to move, needing to do something before I broke. Harper touched my arm. "Em, don't let her get to you." But it was too late. Sadie's words, Dad's dismissal, Mom's silence, they were a chorus drowning me. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. And I wasn't done yet. I sat frozen on the couch, Sadie's text glaring back at me. "Making this about you like always." The words clawed at me, each one sharper than the last. Harper watched, her hand still on my arm, but I barely felt it. My sister wasn't just dismissing my grief, she was rewriting it, turning me into the selfish one. I dropped the phone, my chest so tight I could hardly breathe. How could she say that? How could she think my pain was some kind of performance? I stood and walked to the kitchen, needing distance from that screen. The sink was full of dishes, coffee mugs from sleepless nights. I started scrubbing hard like I could wash away the hurt. Harper followed, leaning against the counter. "Em, talk to me." I shook my head, my hands moving faster. "I don't even know where to start. She's out there trashing me, and Mom and Dad are letting her." The sponge slipped from my grip, splashing water onto my shirt. I cursed under my breath and turned away, wiping my hands on a towel. Harper spoke softly. "Maybe she's jealous. You had Nathan a real family. She's chasing something she doesn't have." I laughed, sharp and hollow. "Jealous, she's got our parents wrapped around her finger. She's got everything." I wandered back to the living room, my eyes landing on a framed photo of Nathan and me at the beach, Lily giggling between us. His grin was wide, his hand ruffling her hair. I picked it up, my throat burning. He deserved better than this. A memorial where his in-laws didn't even show. I set the frame down gently, afraid I'd break it if I held on too long. My phone buzzed again, and I flinched. It was Marcus texting from the memorial cleanup. "Found something in Nathan's desk at work. A letter. It's about your parents. Can I bring it over?" My stomach twisted. A letter. What else did Nathan know? I typed back, my fingers clumsy. "Yeah, come now. I need to see it." While I waited, I checked Sadie's social media again, a habit I couldn't shake. Another post this time, a selfie with friends, her smile radiant. "Living for these moments," she wrote. My blood ran hot. I wanted to call her, scream until she understood the weight of my loss. But I knew she'd just twist it, make me the bad guy again. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to Marcus, his face grim. He handed me a sealed envelope, Nathan's handwriting on the front. "To Emily, in case you need it." I tore it open, my hands unsteady. Inside was a single page dated 2 years ago. "Emily, if you're reading this, something's wrong. Your parents borrowed $10,000 from us for Sadie's condo deposit. They promised to repay it, but they haven't. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you hurt. Protect Lily." I read it twice, my vision blurring. $10,000 they'd taken from us from Nathan and never said a word. I looked at Marcus, my voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't he tell me?" Marcus shrugged his eyes, sad. "He wanted to shield you. Said your family always put Sadie first." I sank onto the stairs, the letter crumpled in my hand. Harper knelt beside me, reading over my shoulder. "That's why they're so tied to her," she said. "They're in deep." I nodded, but it didn't ease the betrayal. They'd used Nathan's kindness, his trust, and now they were erasing him. Lily's voice came from upstairs, sleepy and small. "Mommy, I'm scared." I shoved the letter into my pocket and climbed the steps, my legs heavy. She was sitting up in bed, her bunny clutched tight. "Did Grandma and Grandpa forget us?" she asked, her lip trembling. I pulled her close, my heart splintering. "No, baby, they're just far away." "But I'm here, always." I tucked her back in, but her question echoed. "Forget us." That's what it felt like. My parents, Sadie, they were building a world where Lily and I didn't exist. The anger I'd felt before was nothing compared to this. It was a fire consuming every doubt, every hope I'd clung to. I kissed Lily's forehead and went downstairs, the letter burning a hole in my pocket. Marcus was still there, talking quietly with Harper. I looked at them, my voice steady, despite the chaos inside. I'm done waiting for them to care. Tomorrow, I'm calling Sadie out. No more games. Harper's eyes widened, but Marcus nodded like he'd expected it. I didn't know what Sadie would say, but I was ready to hear it. Or so I thought. 2 weeks after Nathan's memorial, I was folding Lily's laundry in the living room, the quiet hum of the dryer, my only company. The letter from Nathan, the one about my parents' unpaid debt, sat on the coffee table, its edges curling from how often I'd reread it. I hadn't confronted Sadie yet. Every time I tried to call, my anger choked me silent. But I couldn't avoid it forever. Lily deserved a family that showed up, not one that schemed behind her back. The doorbell rang sharp and sudden. I glanced at the clock, 10 a.m. Harper wasn't due, and Marcus was at work. I opened the door, and there they were. Mom and Dad standing on my porch like nothing was wrong. Mom's purse was clutched tight, Dad's hands in his pockets. My stomach lurched. "Emily." Mom said, her voice too bright. "We came to check on you." I stared, my mouth dry. Check on me. Now I stepped aside, letting them in, my mind racing. Lily was at a playdate. Thank God. I didn't want her seeing this. They sat on the couch, Mom smoothing her skirt, Dad clearing his throat. "We're so sorry about Nathan," he said, his eyes darting to the letter on the table. It was the first time they'd said his name since he died. I crossed my arms, standing by the armchair. "Why are you really here?" I asked, my voice steady but sharp. Mom blinked like she was surprised. "We're family. Emily, we want to help." I almost laughed. "Help? You didn't come to his memorial. You didn't call. You left me and Lily alone." Dad shifted, uncomfortable. "We were tied up with Sadie's trip. You know how she gets." I shook my head, my pulse hammering. "No, Dad." "I don't know. What's so important about Sadie that you forgot us?" Mom's lips thinned, and she glanced at Dad. He leaned forward, his tone shifting businesslike. "Look, we've been thinking about Nathan's estate. You're grieving, and we're family. We should share the load. Maybe split it 50-50 to ease things." The room tilted. 50-50. I gripped the armchair, my nails digging into the fabric. "You want half of Nathan's money?" My voice was low, trembling with disbelief. Mom jumped in, her words rushed. "It's not about money, Emily. It's about fairness. Sadie's struggling, and we're all connected." "Fairness?" I snapped, my voice rising. "You borrowed $10,000 from Nathan and never paid it back. You used him, and now you want his legacy." Dad's face reddened, but he didn't deny it. "We needed it for Sadie's condo," he said, like that justified everything. "She's building a future. You've got this house, Lily's trust. You're fine." I laughed, a raw, broken sound. "Fine. My husband's gone. Lily cries for him every night. And you think I'm fine because I have a roof?" Mom reached out her hand, hovering. "Emily, don't be selfish. We're your parents." I stepped back out of her reach. "Selfish? You didn't even say goodbye to Nathan." The air was thick, my chest heaving. Dad stood, his voice firm. "We're not the enemy, Emily. We're trying to keep the family together." I pointed at the letter. "That's what Nathan thought too when he lent you money. And you let him down. Just like you're letting me down now." Mom's eyes flicked to the letter, then back to me, her expression hardening. "You don't understand what we've done for Sadie. She needs us more." My jaw dropped, the words slicing deeper than I expected. "More?" I whispered. "You're saying Sadie matters more than me, than Lily?" Before they could answer, the front door opened. Sadie walked in, her purse slung over her shoulder, her face calm but calculated. "I heard raised voices," she said, glancing at Mom and Dad. "Figured I should be here." I stared at her. my heart pounding so loud I thought it'd burst. She wasn't just part of this, she was leading it. Sadie's presence sucked the air from the room. She stood by the couch, her posture relaxed like she'd rehearsed this moment. I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. "You planned this, didn't you?" I said, my voice shaking. "Coming here with them for Nathan's money." Sadie tilted her head, her smile thin. "Don't make this ugly, Emily. We're just talking about what's fair." "Fair." I stepped closer, my pulse roaring. "You've been spreading lies saying I'm dramatic about Nathan's death, and now you're here backing them up like my grief's a inconvenience." Sadie didn't flinch. She crossed her arms, her eyes cold. "You've always played the victim. Mom and Dad raised us both, but you got the perfect life. Nathan, Lily, this house. I'm the one struggling. You owe us." I staggered back, her words a blade. "Owe you? For what? Living my life?" I turned to Mom, desperate. "Is this what you think? That I owe Sadie because I built something with Nathan?" Mom looked away, her fingers twisting her purse strap. Dad spoke instead, his voice low. "Sadie's right. You've had it easy. We've poured everything into her dreams. You don't get to hoard it all now." My knees buckled, and I gripped the wall to stay upright. Hoard, Nathan worked nights to buy this house. He saved for Lily's future. "And you think you can just take it?" Sadie stepped forward, her voice sharp. "He's gone, Emily. That money's not doing him any good. But it could change my life. I deserve a chance." I stared at her, my sister, the girl I'd shared secrets with, fought over toys with, loved despite everything. And now she was carving up Nathan's memory like it was hers to claim. "You deserve nothing," I whispered, my voice breaking. "You didn't even come to his funeral." Sadie's eyes narrowed. I had my reasons. I spun to Mom and Dad, my voice rising. "And you? What's your excuse you let her poison you against me? Against Lily?" Dad stood taller, his jaw set. "Stop this, Emily. You're tearing us apart. We're here to make things right." "Right," I laughed, the sound jagged. "You show up after weeks of silence, demand half of Nathan's estate, and call that right?" I pointed at Sadie. "She's using you, and you're too blind to see it." Sadie's face flushed, but she didn't back down. "You're selfish, Emily. Always have been. That's why Nathan kept secrets from you, like that loan." My breath stopped. "What did you say?" Sadie smirked, sensing blood. "Oh, you didn't know Nathan told me about the 10,000. Said he regretted trusting Mom and Dad. Guess he didn't trust you enough to tell you either." The room spun. Nathan told her. Not me, his wife, but Sadie. I looked at Mom and Dad, their silence deafening. "You knew. She knew." I asked, my voice barely audible. Mom's eyes dropped to the floor. Dad shrugged. "It was family business," he said. "Family business." The words echoed hollow. I sank onto the armchair, my strength gone. Lily's laughter from her playdate this morning felt like a lifetime ago. I looked at Sadie, her smugness a mask I wanted to shatter. Then at my parents, their faces a mix of guilt and defiance. They weren't here for me. They never were. Footsteps creaked on the stairs behind me. My heart froze. Lily wasn't at her playdate. She'd come home early unnoticed. Her small figure stood halfway down, her bunny dangling from one hand, her eyes wide. She'd heard everything. I opened my mouth, but no words came. The world I'd built to protect her was crumbling, and I was powerless to stop it. Lily's small figure on the stairs stopped my heart. Her wide eyes locked on Sadie, then Mom and Dad, her bunny dangling limp in her hand. The room went silent, their voices cut off like someone flipped a switch. I rushed to her, kneeling to block her view of them. "Sweetheart, go back upstairs," I whispered, my voice trembling. She didn't move, her gaze fixed past me. "Why are they yelling?" she asked, her voice so small it cracked something inside me. I turned, my eyes burning as I faced my family. "You've done enough," I said, standing to shield Lily. "She shouldn't be hearing this." Sadie rolled her eyes, but Mom's face softened like she'd just noticed Lily. "Emily, we didn't mean she started, but I cut her off." "No, you don't get to do this in front of her." Lily tugged my sleeve, her hand warm and steady. "Mommy, I found something." She held up a creased envelope, her tiny fingers gripping it tight. It was from Nathan's desk, the one I'd overlooked in my grief. I took it, my breath catching at his handwriting on the front. "For Lily and Emily." My hands shook as I opened it, aware of Sadie's sharp stare, Dad's shifting feet, Mom's nervous fidgeting. Inside was a single sheet, Nathan's words bold and clear. "If my family comes for what's ours, don't let them take it. The loan was my mistake, but Lily's future isn't theirs to claim. I love you both, forever." I read it silently, my throat closing. Nathan knew. He'd seen their greed long before I did. Lily looked up at me, her voice steady. "Daddy said to give it to them if they asked for stuff." I stared at her, my 5-year-old daughter, carrying a strength I hadn't found yet. Pride surged through me, mixed with a fierce need to protect her. I turned to Mom, holding the letter up. "This is Nathan's will," I said, my voice low but firm. "He knew you'd come for his money, and he made sure you'd get nothing." Sadie laughed, sharp and dismissive. "A letter. That's not legal, Emily. You're grasping." I stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. "It's his truth, and it's enough for me to fight you." Dad's face hardened. "Don't threaten us, Emily. We're your family." I shook my head, my resolve building. Family doesn't steal from a child. I glanced at Lily, her small hand in mine, and felt Nathan's words anchor me. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for her, for the life he wanted us to have. Sadie took a step forward, her voice icy. "You're making a mistake, Emily. You'll regret this." I met her gaze, unflinching. "The only mistake was trusting you'd care." Mom reached for Dad's arm, her voice pleading. "Let's go, Robert. We'll talk later." But I wasn't done. I held the letter tighter, its weight giving me clarity. "You came for money," I said, my voice rising. "But you're leaving with nothing. Not today. Not ever." Lily squeezed my hand, her presence a quiet fire. I looked down at her, and something shifted inside me. I wasn't the daughter begging for their love anymore. I was a mother, a widow, a woman who'd survived too much to let them break me. I straightened, ready to push them out, my strength growing with every heartbeat. The room pulsed with tension, Nathan's letter still in my hand, its words a shield I hadn't known I needed. Sadie's eyes darted to it, her confidence cracking, but she stood her ground, arms crossed. Mom and Dad hovered behind her, their faces a mix of defiance and unease. Lily clung to my side, her warmth steadying me. I wasn't shaking anymore. Something solid was growing inside, a resolve I'd buried under years of trying to please them. "You need to leave," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. Sadie scoffed, tossing her hair. "You're kicking us out." "Over a piece of paper." I stepped forward, closing the gap between us, my gaze steady. "It's not just paper. It's Nathan's voice. And it's telling me to protect what he left for Lily. Not you, not them, her." Sadie's mouth opened, but no words came. Dad stepped in, his voice gruff. Emily, be reasonable. We're not here to fight. I turned to him, my eyes burning. Reasonable? You came to my home days after my husband died and asked for his money. You don't get to call that reasonable. Mom's hands twisted together, her voice shaky. We're just trying to help Sadie. She's got debts, Emily. You don't understand. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the exhaustion in her eyes. For a moment, I felt a pang of pity. Then I remembered Lily's question on the stairs, her fear that they'd forgotten her. That pity vanished. I understand, I said, my voice low. You've chosen Sadie every time. Her recitals, her crises, her debts. But I'm done begging for scraps of your love. Lily deserves better. I deserve better. Mom flinched, but Dad's face hardened. You're cutting us off then, after everything we've done. Everything. I laughed, soft and bitter. You mean the birthdays you skipped? The calls you ignored? Or the $10,000 you took from Nathan and never mentioned? Dad's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. Sadie shifted, her voice sharp. You're twisting this, Emily. Nathan gave that money willingly. I spun to her, my anger flaring. And you knew about it. You knew and never told me. My own sister keeping secrets to protect her own game. Sadie's eyes flickered, but she didn't deny it. The silence was louder than any confession. I turned back to Mom and Dad, my decision clear. You're not welcome here until you respect what Nathan wanted. What I want? The doorbell rang, cutting through the standoff. I opened it to find Harper, her face tense. Marcus called me, she said, stepping inside. Said you might need backup. She glanced at Sadie, then my parents, her presence a quiet strength. I nodded, grateful. Harper's arrival shifted the air like a tide turning in my favor. Sadie grabbed her purse, her voice cold. You're making a mistake, Emily. You'll end up alone. I met her gaze, unflinching. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who only show up to take. She froze, her bravado slipping. Mom reached for her, whispering, Let's go, Sadie. Dad followed, his shoulders slumped, no fight left. As they walked to the door, I knelt beside Lily, her small hand still in mine. She looked up, her eyes clear. Did I do good, Mommy? I hugged her tight, my heart swelling. You did perfect, sweetheart. Daddy would be so proud. She smiled, and in that moment, I felt Nathan's love steady and unshakable guiding us. The door clicked shut behind them, the house suddenly quiet. Harper touched my shoulder. You okay, Em? I nodded, but my eyes stayed on Lily, who'd gone to the couch and picked up her sketchbook. I walked over, sitting beside her, and saw her drawing a house with 3 figures, me, her, and Nathan's face in the clouds. I didn't say a word. I just pulled her close, my fingers brushing her hair. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I'd drawn a line, and I'd hold it, not with shouts or tears, but with the quiet certainty that Lily and I were enough. The house felt too still after they left, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat on the couch, Lily curled up beside me, her sketchbook open to that drawing of our family, Nathan watching from the clouds. Harper stood by the window, her arms crossed, staring out at the empty driveway where Mom, Dad, and Sadie had driven away. I didn't speak. My throat was raw, my mind replaying the moment I'd told them to go. I'd meant every word, but the silence they left behind was heavier than I'd expected. Lily shifted her head, resting on my arm. Are they mad at us? She asked, her voice soft but curious. I smoothed her hair, choosing my words carefully. They're upset, sweetheart, but that's not your fault. You did something brave today. She nodded, her eyes drifting back to her drawing, and I wondered how much she understood. Harper turned her face tight. You were incredible, Em. Standing up like that, I've never seen you so sure. I managed a small smile, but it didn't reach my heart. Sure didn't feel like the right word. I felt exposed, like I'd ripped open a wound and let it bleed in front of them. I'd drawn a line, but what came next? That evening, my phone lit up with a call from Mom. I stared at her name, my stomach twisting. Harper raised an eyebrow from the kitchen where she was making tea. You gonna answer? I shook my head, letting it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready for her excuses, not after today. The voicemail pinged, and I played it on speaker, my hands unsteady. Emily. Mom's voice crackled soft and halting. We didn't mean to upset you. We're sorry. Let's talk soon. Please. I deleted it, my jaw tight. Sorry wasn't enough, not when they'd stood in my home demanding Nathan's legacy like it was theirs to claim. Harper set a mug in front of me, the steam curling upward. They're scrambling, she said. You shook them. I sipped the tea, its warmth doing little to ease the chill inside. Shook them how I asked. They still think they're right. Harper sat across from me, her eyes steady. They're not used to you pushing back. Sadie's always been the one they follow. But you just changed the game. I looked away, my fingers tracing the mug's handle. Changed it to what? A family that doesn't speak. Lily doesn't deserve that. Before Harper could answer, my phone buzzed again. A text from my cousin Jenna, someone I hadn't talked to in months. Heard from Sadie. She says you kicked your parents out over money. Is that true? My chest tightened. Sadie was already spinning her story, painting me as the villain. I typed back, my fingers sharp. She wanted Nathan's estate. I said no. That's the truth. Jenna didn't reply, and I set the phone down, my head pounding. Harper watched me, her voice gentle. Sadie's gonna keep this up, you know, talking to everyone, making it her word against yours. I nodded, the weight of it settling in. I'd stood my ground, but Sadie wasn't done. She'd take this fight to the family, to anyone who'd listen. I stood and walked to the fireplace, where a small wooden box held Nathan's favorite keepsakes, a watch, a postcard from our honeymoon, a tiny rock Lily had painted for him. I opened it, my fingers brushing the rock's smooth surface. He'd carried it in his pocket every day, a reminder of her love. I closed the box, my resolve flickering. I'd protected his wishes today, but at what cost? Lily yawned, breaking my thoughts. I carried her to bed, tucking her in with a kiss. Sleep well, my love, I whispered. She murmured something I couldn't catch, already drifting off. Downstairs, Harper was cleaning up her presents, a quiet comfort. I sat back on the couch, staring at the empty space where my parents had stood. Their apology echoed in my mind, thin and unconvincing. I'd pushed them away, but the victory felt hollow, like a door slammed shut with no key to open it again. I woke the next morning to a gray sky. The kind that promised rain, but held back, leaving everything heavy. Lily was still asleep. Her door cracked open, the soft rise and fall of her breathing the only sound in the house. I stood at the kitchen counter, staring at a cold cup of coffee, my mind stuck on Jenna's text. Sadie's story was spreading, twisting my stand into something cruel. I hadn't just drawn a line, I'd started a war I wasn't sure I could win. My phone stayed silent, no follow-up from Jenna, no calls from Mom or Dad. I didn't expect one, but the quiet stung all the same. I opened my laptop, needing to do something, anything, to keep the doubts at bay. I searched for a lawyer, someone to lock down Nathan's estate, to make sure Lily's future was untouchable. I found Amanda, a local attorney with sharp reviews, and sent her an email attaching a scan of Nathan's letter. My fingers lingered over the send button, a flicker of fear in my chest. This was real now, no turning back. Midday, Marcus texted. Heard what happened. You okay? Need me to swing by? I smiled faintly, grateful for his steadiness. I'm fine, I replied, though I wasn't. Just figuring out next steps. He sent back a quick, "You're tougher than they are. Keep going." I set the phone down, his words a small anchor in the storm. By afternoon, Amanda called, her voice crisp but kind. "I've read the letter, Emily. It's not a legal will, but it's strong evidence of intent. We can file to secure the estate for your daughter." I explained everything Mom and Dad's demand. Sadie's lies, the unpaid loan. She listened, then said, "This won't be easy. Family disputes get messy. Are you ready?" I swallowed my eyes on Lily's drawing pinned to the fridge, a bright sun over our house. "I'm ready," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. Hanging up, I noticed a new message from Sadie, the first since yesterday. "You're breaking Mom's heart, Emily. Think about what you're doing." I stared at it, my pulse quickening. Breaking Mom's heart. After they'd trampled mine, I didn't reply, but her words burrowed deep, stirring a guilt I didn't want to feel. I'd stood up for Lily, for Nathan's wishes, but the cost was piling up, a family fracturing whispers spreading my name dragged through Sadie's version of the truth. I walked to the backyard, the grass damp under my bare feet. The swing Nathan built for Lily creaked in the breeze, its ropes frayed but holding strong. I sat on it, pushing off gently, my hands tight on the ropes. I thought of Nathan, how he'd laugh when Lily begged for one more push. He'd trusted me to carry on without him, but he hadn't warned me how lonely that would feel. The back door opened, and Harper stepped out, a blanket over her shoulders. She sat on the porch steps, watching me swing. "You're quiet today," she said. I nodded, the swing slowing. "Just thinking about what I've done, what it means." She tilted her head, her voice soft. "You did what you had to. But it's okay to feel the weight." I stopped swinging, my feet brushing the ground. The weight was all I felt. Sadie's text, Jenna's doubt, Mom's weak apology, they swirled in my mind, each one a reminder of what I'd lost. Not just Nathan, but the family I'd hoped for, the one I'd pretended was mine. I looked at Harper, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought standing up would feel good, but it just feels empty. She didn't answer, just sat there, her presence steady. The sky darkened, a single raindrop hitting my cheek. I stayed on the swing, the creak of the ropes, the only sound, my heart sinking into a quiet ache. I'd fought for Lily, but the victory was cold, and the road ahead looked lonelier than ever. A month after that day, I found myself at the park down the street, the first warm day of spring wrapping around us like a soft blanket. Lily ran ahead, her sneakers kicking up wood chips as she aimed for the slide. I settled on a bench, the sun warming my face, and watched her climb, her laughter bright against the chatter of other kids. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders didn't feel like they were carrying a house. I'd started volunteering at a grief support group at the community center, something I stumbled into after a flyer caught my eye. Last night, I'd shared a piece of Nathan's story, how he'd hum off key while cooking breakfast, how he'd leave notes in my coat pocket. The group listened, their nods quiet but heavy with understanding. I didn't cry, not like I thought I would. Instead, I felt lighter, like I'd given a piece of him to the world, not just locked him in my heart. Lily waved from the slide, her grin wide. I waved back, my chest full. She was my anchor, her joy pulling me through the fog. But the fight with my family still lingered, a bruise that ached when I pressed it. Mom had called once more, leaving a voicemail I hadn't answered. Sadie's silence was louder, her social media now private, a wall I didn't try to climb. I pulled a small notebook from my bag, one I'd bought to jot down thoughts when the group encouraged it. I flipped it open, my pen hovering. I wrote about the park, the way the trees were budding, their green tips stubborn against the cold. I wrote about Lily, how she'd started asking about Nathan's favorite color, like she was collecting him in her own way. I didn't write about my parents. Not yet. A woman approached her coat, bundled tight despite the warmth. I recognized her from the group. Clara, maybe in her 50s. Her eyes kind, but tired. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, gesturing to the bench. I nodded, sliding my notebook aside. She watched the kids play, her hands folded in her lap. "You spoke last night," she said. "About your husband. It stuck with me." I tilted my head, curious. "Why's that?" She smiled faintly, her gaze distant. "My sister cut me off years ago. Wanted my dad's inheritance all to herself. I fought her lost more than money. Your story reminded me of that ache." I swallowed her words, hitting close. "Did you ever make peace with it?" I asked. She shrugged. "Not with her, but with myself. That's what keeps me going." Her words settled in me, heavy, but not crushing. I looked at Lily now on the swings, her legs pumping high. Clara stood patting my shoulder. "You'll find your way, Emily. You're stronger than you know." She walked off, her steps slow but steady, leaving me with a thought I hadn't dared to hold. Maybe strength wasn't about winning. Maybe it was about choosing what to carry. I tucked the notebook back in my bag, my eyes on Lily. The park hummed with life, kids shouting, a dog barking, a breeze rustling the new leaves. I felt Nathan in that moment, not in pain, but in the quiet beauty he'd always loved. I wasn't healed, not fully, but I was here, breathing, watching our daughter soar. That was enough for now. Noise faded as I leaned back on the bench. Lily's laughter, a steady rhythm in the distance. My bag sat heavy beside me, the notebook inside, now holding more than just scribbles. I reached for it again, but instead pulled out a photo I'd tucked in the back, a Polaroid of Nathan and Lily at a pumpkin patch. His grin wide as he balanced her on his shoulders. I hadn't looked at it in months, afraid it would hurt too much. Today, it didn't. It warmed me like sunlight through a window. I slipped the photo into my pocket and stood walking toward the swings where Lily was slowing down. She hopped off, her cheeks flushed, and grabbed my hand. "Can we make a book for Daddy?" she asked, her eyes bright. Like with pictures and stories, I knelt beside her, surprised. "A book? Yeah, baby, we can do that. What kind?" She thought for a moment, her brow furrowed. "One that makes him smile in heaven." Her words caught me, simple but piercing. I nodded, my throat tight. "Let's start tonight," I said, squeezing her hand. We walked home, her chatter about glitter and stickers filling the air. Back in the house, I pulled out a blank scrapbook from a drawer, its pages crisp and waiting. Lily sprawled on the floor, sorting crayons, while I gathered photos and small mementos, a ticket stub from Nathan's favorite concert, a doodle he'd left on a napkin. As we worked, my phone buzzed, a text from Harper. Sadie tried calling me, wanted to explain. I told her to back off. "You good?" I stared at the screen, my heart steady. Sadie's reach felt distant now, like a storm that had passed. I texted back, "I'm fine, thanks for having my back." I set the phone down, no urge to check for more. Lily held up a photo of Nathan reading to her, his glasses slipping down his nose. This one, she said, taping it to a page. He liked stories. I smiled, adding a note beside it in my neatest handwriting. "You made bedtime magic." The scrapbook grew page by page, each memory a stitch in the fabric of us. I didn't feel the old ache, the one that used to choke me. Instead, I felt Nathan's presence quiet and whole in the way Lily giggled at his silly faces frozen in time. Later, I stepped onto the porch, the evening air cool against my skin. The neighborhood was settling, porch lights flickering on a dog barking somewhere down the street. I sat on the steps, my hands wrapped around my knees, and thought about Clara's words at the park. Peace with myself. I wasn't there yet, but I was closer. My parents' choices, Sadie's betrayal, they weren't mine to carry anymore. I'd let them go, not with anger, but with a quiet choice to live for Lily, for me. I looked up at the sky, the first stars faint against the dusk. Nathan used to say the stars were stories, each one holding someone's light. I didn't know if I believed that, but I wanted to. I wanted to think he was up there seeing Lily's book, seeing me try. I stood brushing off my jeans and went inside. The scrapbook lay open on the table, Lily asleep on the couch, a crayon still in her hand. I covered her with a blanket, my fingers lingering on her cheek. The house was still, but not empty. It held us, our laughter, our small victories. I sat beside her, my breathing slow, and felt a calm I hadn't known I could find. Not an ending, but a pause, a moment to rest before whatever came next. 6 months later, I sat at the kitchen table, a soft rain tapping the windows, the house wrapped in the kind of quiet that feels earned. Lily was upstairs, her giggles drifting down as she played with her dolls, inventing stories only a 5-year-old could dream up. I held a cup of chamomile tea, its steam curling in the lamplight, and opened a new journal, its pages blank but inviting. I'd started writing again, not just for the grief group, but for myself, to make sense of the woman I was becoming. The days had settled into a rhythm, one I hadn't expected to find so soon. Mornings were for coffee and Lily's chatter over cereal, afternoons for work at the bookstore, where I'd taken a part-time job shelving novels and recommending poetry to strangers. Evenings were ours, filled with board games or reading Nathan's old adventure books to Lily, her eyes wide at the tales of far-off places. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was enough. I'd stopped checking my phone for calls from Mom or Dad. The last message from them was weeks ago, a short text from Mom asking to meet. I hadn't replied, not out of anger, but because I wasn't ready. The space I'd carved out for Lily and me felt sacred, too fragile for their half-hearted apologies. Sadie had gone quiet too, her name only coming up when Harper mentioned a rumor about her moving to a new city, chasing another dream. I didn't ask for details. That chapter was closed. I flipped open the journal and started writing, my pen moving with a steadiness I hadn't felt before. I wrote about the bookstore, how the smell of old pages reminded me of Nathan's study, how a customer's kind word could shift my whole day. I wrote about Lily's new habit of collecting leaves, pressing them into a scrapbook with labels in her wobbly handwriting. I wrote about myself, how I'd learned to sit with silence not as a void, but as a place to rebuild. The doorbell rang, and I set the pen down, expecting Harper with her usual Friday pizza. Instead, it was Jenna, my cousin, standing under an umbrella, her coat damp from the drizzle. I blinked, surprised. We hadn't spoken since her text months ago when she'd questioned my side of Sadie's story. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice hesitant. I nodded, stepping aside, my heart cautious but open. We sat in the living room, the rain a soft backdrop. Jenna fidgeted with her sleeve, then looked up. "I owe you an apology, Emily. I believed Sadie at first about the money, about you, but I talked to Harper and I was wrong. I'm sorry." Her words were simple, but they landed heavy like a stone dropped in still water. I leaned back, my hands clasped. "Thank you," I said, my voice even. "It means a lot to hear that." She stayed for a while, talking about small things, her job, her kids, the weather. It wasn't deep, but it was honest, a bridge we might rebuild in time. When she left, I stood at the door watching her umbrella bob down the street. A weight I hadn't named lifted not all the way, but enough to notice. I wasn't alone, not entirely. There were people who saw me, who chose me, even after the mess. Back at the table, I picked up the journal again, but I didn't write. I closed my eyes, letting the rain's rhythm sink in. Lily's laughter echoed from upstairs, a sound that held Nathan's joy, my strength, our life. I breathed deep, the air clean and cool, and felt the edges of my heart soften, ready to carry whatever came next. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh, like the world had taken a deep breath. I stood in the backyard barefoot on the cool grass, a small wooden box in my hands. It was one of Nathan's, filled with trinkets he'd collected, coins from trips, a keychain from his first job, a folded note I'd written him years ago. I hadn't opened it since his death, but tonight felt right, like I could face it without breaking. I sat on the porch steps, the box on my lap, and lifted the lid. The note was on top, my handwriting faded but clear. "You make every day brighter," I'd written back when we were just starting out. I smiled, tracing the words, and felt a warmth that wasn't just memory. It was gratitude for the love we'd built, for the daughter we'd raised, for the strength he'd left me. I thought about my parents, about Sadie, about the hurt they'd carved into me. I'd spent so long chasing their approval, thinking it would make me whole. But standing up to them, drawing that line, taught me something deeper. Wholeness wasn't in their hands. It was in mine, in the choices I made, the boundaries I set, the love I gave Lily. I didn't need their validation to know my worth. That night, I started a new ritual. After Lily went to bed, I lit a candle in the kitchen, its flames small but steady. I'd sit with it, letting my thoughts wander, not to fix the past, but to honor the present. Some nights, I wrote in my journal words that no one would read, about the ache of missing Nathan, the joy of Lily's laugh, the quiet pride of standing tall. Other nights, I just watched the flame, letting it remind me that light could grow from even the smallest spark. I heard from Clara at the grief group, who'd become a friend, her stories of loss and resilience a mirror to my own. She told me once that forgiveness wasn't about letting people back in. It was about freeing yourself from their weight. I took that to heart, not rushing to forgive Mom or Dad or Sadie, but choosing to release their hold on me. I didn't hate them. I didn't need to. I was building a life that didn't depend on their shadows. Lily and I planted a small garden that spring, a patch of wildflowers by the fence. She'd dig in the dirt, her hands messy, naming each seedling after something she loved. Sunshine. Pancakes, Daddy. Watching her, I saw Nathan's spirit, his belief that beauty could grow anywhere. I wasn't the same woman who'd called her parents begging for comfort only to be turned away. I was someone new, someone who'd learned that love wasn't about who stayed, but about who you chose to hold close. The lesson wasn't loud or grand. It was, this healing comes when you stop waiting for others to fix you. It's in the small acts, planting a flower, lighting a candle, holding your child's hand. It's in knowing you're enough, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. I'd found my strength not in winning, but in choosing to live fully, despite the scars. What's a moment that made you realize your own strength? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe to join me for more. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that they're enough. Thank you for being here, for listening, for carrying your own light. Here's to healing, one step at a time.